Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby. And today, for the first time on my channel, I'm showcasing to you guys counter fairies. And the reason why I'm showcasing this deck is because it's for my subscribers. Everything I do is for you guys. I don't really do what I want. I wish I could do what I want sometimes, but I like to upload the videos that you guys ask for instead of just what I feel like should go on the channel. You know what I'm saying? So today we're showcasing the counter fairies. I put my foot in it big time. I innovated with the deck a little bit, but I didn't want to make it so much more spice than it is actually counter fairies. You know, I had so many texts that the text started to look like the deck versus the deck just having text, if that makes sense. So I had to cut back on some text. I had put too much seasoning in this deck. I had to ease up on the salt, you know what I'm saying? Ease up on the spice. So let's go ahead and hop into this build. Keep in mind, the way I build my decks is totally based on how I feel the deck should be played and how I like it. So if you ever see card choices that you don't agree with, I'm totally okay with you letting me know that you don't agree with it. It's not going to hurt my feelings. But there's no way that I would change the way I play my decks because similar to almost everybody, you know, we just play the cards the way we want to play them. So let's hop into this build. First off, with our monsters, we're going to start off with Sacred, Arc Knight, Arc Air Knight, Parshaft. So this card is the boss monster of the deck. He's also actually the win condition of the deck, because this deck has difficulty getting damage on board. It has no problem with managing and controlling the field and controlling the board and what your opponent does, but where it really lacked was in damage output, the ability to end games quickly, which was something that really sucked. But now with the card like this, you can end games a lot quicker. He summons himself through his own effect, and you can summon him off of their trap, Rebirth the Parshaft. He also searches for Parshafts or counter traps, so he's a searcher as well. He's extremely recoverable from hand or grave. You can actually grind with one, but I play Pot of Desires in my list, and I don't want to banish all of them, you know what I'm saying? So I decided to play two because he's really important. He also lets you actually set up for link summoning plays. Like normally I go into Hippo Shinigen, keep my Barrier statue up, and then re-summon him from the grave off a counter trap using his own effect. Yeah, he's really broken. And then next up, the most important monster to open up every turn one is Guiding Ariadne. This card is amazing. You want to have one in skill at all times, and even under Demise, you can just play it in your spell or trap zone. So it's one of the best monsters that you can draw off Demise because you won't completely lose it. In fact, its best place is to be in the in the Pendulum Zone, but you can have it on field, and if it dies, you'll search. But it keeps your counter traps from forcing you to pay costs, like discarding for costs and paying life points. All your negates are pretty much free. So your strikes are free, your warnings are free, your ultimate providences are free, your Rebirth or Parshaft, which is broken, all you have to do is reveal a counter trap for that, but you don't have to discard or pay life points. It just makes your negates free. So at this point, you're 1-for-1ing your opponent without paying for costs, but your 1-for-1s are different because you have a negate for actually any action. It's really good. Next up, we have our Bountiful Artemis. I only have two. I really don't know where the third one went. I really don't. I'm sorry, you guys, but I only have two. I would definitely play three because it's how you don't 1-for-1 your opponent, because this deck, every time your opponent has an action, you flip a track to negate it. So you guys kind of go 1-for-1. And while, yeah, you're kind of in control because your opponent can't kill you, it really helps to get the card advantage back. You get what I'm saying? It's like making an investment. That's what I like to think of Artemis as. He's like an investment. He's like a deposit where you get your withdrawal later. So you deposit into your normal summon, and you get a huge withdrawal and a cashback in advance, like your tax return, just by keeping him on field, because every time you resolve a counter trap, you draw a card. So you set 4. If there are 4 counter traps, each time a counter trap is activated, immediately after it resolves, draw one. So you can draw 4 cards and replenish your whole hand off of Artemis. That's why I really need to play 3, but I don't have 3. So it's not like I can do anything about it. Then we have some 1-ofs, and these are actually targets for your Ties of the Brethren. We have Powered Angel Valkyria, really good card. Basically, if you negate an action, you get to search a Light Fairy from your deck to your hand. That really helps to search your Bountiful Artemis, or you can even search your Parshaft. If you don't have his counter trap, you can just search him, resolve another counter trap, and special summon him from your hand using his monster effect, which is really good. And then we have the MVP, Meltiel Sage of the Sky. I love this card. He's ridiculously good. Each time a counter trap is activated, immediately after it resolves, gain 1,000 life points, boy. Gain 1,000 life points. Each time you resolve a counter trap, gain 1,000 life points. And then if Sanctuary is on the sky, destroy 1 card on the field. Does not target. Destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Does not target. So you're not 1-for-1ing your opponent anymore. You're 1-for-2ing them. You're 1-for-2ing them, bro. You flip a strike, you negate their monster effect, you don't pay for the cost because you got this guy, you gain 1,000 life points instead. You negate their monster effect, you gain 1,000 life points, then you pop a card on their field. And then if you did the Ties of the Brethren on this, which I love to do, go for Artemis and Meltiel. Artemis, Meltiel, you flip one counter trap, like a Strike. Great example, Strike, very popular counter trap. You don't pay your costs, you gain 1,000 life points, so you're at 9,000 now, unless you did a Ties of the Brethren play. You draw a card, and then you pop a card, and they're not once per turn, they're just each time it resolves. These cards allow you to gain control of the duel. So yeah, Meltiel is like the MVP. He's like my favorite normal summonable monster in this deck right now. He is so powerful. You know, honest, I played just one. I am playing Card of Demise, and I felt like all these other guys that are not bountiful in Ariadne, which, you know, are guys that I want to open up with, I felt like these guys are powerful, but in order to play the deck correctly, to circumvent, you just play your ties, and that way you can get them on field even as one-ofs and have easier access into them without clogging your hand with too many normal summons, especially if you're trying to resolve a demise. And last up, the Barrier Statue of Heavens, right? And even sometimes when I want to summon Honest, just so he can get the protection, sometimes I actually end up summoning the Barrier Statue and the Meltiel. Like, this is what I really love to do. Like, these, when I resolve ties, these are the monsters I want to end on. I want to end on the Barrier Statue, which is killing the meta. You know, they can still summon Titan. That's fine. That's cute. We have counter shots for everything. So we're going to have Artemis, which is going to let us draw. He's going to let us pop and gain life points. This guy's going to floodgate your opponent from special summoning. So, yeah, this is like the best way to resolve your ties. And after these goes, you can ties for this, for example. But yeah, those are all the monsters. I don't play any hand traps. You can if you want. If you don't want to play the Demise variant, go for it. But yeah, this deck is too powerful with Demise. Because you're playing a very slow pace, kind of, you're trying to steamroll on turn 2 deck, but turn 1 you need a setup and you need enough resources to actually be able to stop your opponent from going off, right? So yeah, Card of Demise is actually the best way to do so, because you need to get specific setups. You always want to have your Guiding Ariadne, so that you don't have to pay the cost for your traps. Without Guiding Ariadne, even with Bountiful Artemis on field, and even with your Meltiel, this guy right here, the broken one-off, right? Super Savage, the Sage of the Sky. You won't be gaining an advantage. You'll be breaking even, because you have discards for cost. You'll discard, then you'll draw off of your Bountiful Artemis, and then you'll pay life points for cost. For example, for Strike, you'll gain 1,000 and then pop. So it's like you'll still kind of gain advantage, but you're not generating any advantage in terms of pluses, plus-worthy advantage. So yeah, cards like Demise really help so you can get your setup with your Guiding Ariadne. I do play triple pot. Even though you have one-ofs that you don't want to banish, you need +1s in this deck. And I really prefer to resolve pot after I've already resolved a Ties of the Brethren. Ties of the Brethren is a really powerful play. But don't get me wrong, if I need access to a certain monster, I will hold off on my pot. Because if you already, for example, resolve the Demise, or if you already open up with an adequate amount of counter traps where you know you have 3 negates, 3 negates is enough for any deck, no matter how good they are. Unless they're like Cyber Dragons, you know, they could probably play around that. But if you have 3 negates, that's enough to hold you down for that turn. So that way you can resolve your ties, get your guys out, and then resolve Pot of Desires. And that'll help you to just come back into the duel and just be ahead now. Like, that helps you get ahead. Because you get a bigger board, you get more advantage, your monsters are going to be problems. And then you also get the 2 extra cards that you needed, plus your draw for turn. So yeah, +2, +1, really good. I also maximize on triple Cards of the Sky. Cards of the Sky is a really good card to help you to dig deeper into your deck. It's a really powerful card because it's also not once per turn. And you know what this helps with too? It helps to complement your Card of Demise. Why 3 stacks? Because when you open with Demise and you also have 1 too many monsters, you can actually use Card of the Sky, sack it off, draw 2, and you get that monster out of your hand. Hope to God you don't draw 2 monsters, right? And then you can resolve your Demise and get the maximum value out of your Demise. So Cards of the Sky is really good, and it's not once per turn. It's just a really, really powerful card. The drawback and restriction doesn't even hurt, especially going turn 1. And considering the fact that it allows you to draw 2 cards, it's amazing. Next up, we have Ties. I didn't want to conflict with my other draw cards, you know, Demise and Cards from the Sky. But at the same time, I wanted to play a healthy amount of Ties. I mean, honestly, after you resolve Ties turn 1, you don't really need it again. But the deck does have a lot of draw power. And it's not just your power spells. It's actually your Bountiful Artemis being able to just net you advantage every single time you resolve a counter trap. So you do have a lot of draw power. Consistent deck, really is. So you can see this pretty oftenly. But also, I didn't want to play 3 of it because I felt that Ties would start conflicting with Demise and with Cards from the Sky. Because you don't want those hands where it's like, I have to pick one. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Where it's like, I can't resolve both of them, so I have to pick one. And I don't like being in that awkward, uncomfortable situation. I like being able to have all my cards being able to cooperate with each other, having a fully functional, cohesive hand, which allows me to play all the cards that I want to and get the board that I want without my own cards being a restriction. So that's really why I play 2. And then next up, another 2 of. Finishing off the spells, we played the Sanctum of Parshaft. So this card is amazing. It offers protections for all your spells and traps, so that they can be targeted or destroyed. They can still evenly match, but you're never going to resolve an evenly match against this deck. It has too many negates, to be honest, just letting you know. What it does is not only protect your spells and traps, it's also Sanctuary on the Sky Wall in the field, which is really important because it's a Parshaft card that you can also search off of your boss monster, which is why I only play 2, and you have a lot of draw power again. And also, it can actually take a combination of light fairies and or counter traps from your graveyard and put them on the top of your deck in any order. That's how you get back your one-ofs. That's how you get back this guy. That's how you get back your barrier statue. That's why you only need to play 1. That's how you get back your Artemises, your Honest, so that you can, for example, resolve another ties. Or if you just want them back because they're at 1, instead of playing Revival card, you could just get these guys back. It's not like you play a lot of normal summons, and you're not always going to have a monster to normal summon, which I have been in that situation testing with this deck. So this card gave me back my Meltiel because I love this card. I think this card is the best card in the deck. And then you just put them on top of your deck, you draw them for turn, you have a powerful normal summon, and you just continue with your plays. This is a really good card. It helps in the grind. And that's it for the spells. No Pot of Duality for this build. I actually decided to cut Pot of Duality instead for the Cards of the Sky. Because it doesn't have the hard once per turn restriction. If you read the card, it doesn't say you can only activate 1. It doesn't have the hard once per turn restriction. And also, I didn't want too many cards to conflict with my own Ties of the Brethren, which is a really, really powerful turn 1 play. Next up, for the Cancer, we have Triple Rebirth the Parshaft. What this card does is it negates any kind of action except for a summon. But other than that, if it's not a summon, it can negate Spell Trap or Monster. And what it does is the requirements to activate this broken trap, which is not hard once per turn, is you have to have a counter trap in your hand. And if you don't have Guiding Ariadne, the unfortunate thing is you have to pay life points and discard a card in order to resolve this card. So honestly, remember what I was telling you, how really important it is to have Guiding Ariadne? Honestly, I'd rather resolve this card with the Ariadne in my scale, so I don't have to worry about the downside and drawback of this cost, because it is a hefty cost. I mean, yeah, it is an all-time negate, and it doesn't have a specific interaction where it can only respond to one thing. It can respond to pretty much anything but a summon, but that cost is so hefty. And even with Meltiel and even with Bountiful Artemis, it's like you're breaking even. You want a plus on your opponent's turn. So this card is better paired with Guiding Ariadne. And after it negates that action, what it does is it actually summons a Parshaft monster from your extra deck or your main deck to your field, which is insane. So opening with this and no monsters, you can still get a monster on the field. And then once you get your Parshaft, you know what's so awesome about that? Your Parshaft can search you another copy of this. And you'll have another one, then you can summon a second Parshaft from your deck if you didn't banish it off Desires, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, this trap's really broken, and it's not once per turn either. It's not. So if you have multiples, for example, you can actually just OTK your opponent next turn. And if you don't, you search another copy of it and then any other counter trap, because that's what Parshaft does. He searches anything. Next up, the next equivalent to Rebirth of Parshaft is Ultimate Providence. It does basically the same thing. But it doesn't summon Parshaft. But it's still a powerful complement to everything that you have set in your face down back rows, because it protects you from evenly match. It protects you from Twin Twisters. You know, it pretty much protects you from anything, so that your opponent can't really respond or react to what you're doing. Especially like a card like Red Reboot. That's something that I felt was really interesting about this deck. You know, a lot of back row decks like Altergeist and Paleos, if they don't have a Toad, can really lose to evenly match. And Toad can't respond to Red Reboot. Like, that's crazy, right? How those decks, those trap-heavy decks, lose to Red Reboot and evenly. This is actually a trap-heavy deck that has main deck hard counters to its weaknesses, being evenly matched, Red Reboot, and Twin Twisters. Those are the main ways to play around, you know, like really, really powerful back row heavy decks. Even Heavy Storm, Hey True Nade, and cards like these just negate those. They negate the evenly matched. They negate the Red Reboot. You can even chain the Red Reboot. Chain your own, you know, other counter trap to the Red Reboot, and it just keeps your back rows from being killed. And also keep in mind that this protects you from Twin Twisters as well. So yeah, the weakness, even if somebody wants to drop a comment and say, you know, people leave those weird comments where they just say one word and they're like, evenly matched. It's like this deck has the main deck outs to a lot of its weaknesses. Its main weakness, which we already have a supplement for that, is its damage output. We play Parshaft, the new boss monster, for the deck, which is not new, but it's, you know, fairly new for like this archetype because counter fairies are pretty old, and it really helps. So this deck is, I give it like a 7 out of 10. It's very well rounded. Continuing, we have triple Solemn Strike. It's not once per turn. And you can also search it off your Ariadne, and you can search it off your Parshaft, and you play it for free with Ariadne, which is broken. Next up, we have double Divine Punishment. What this card actually does is the exact same thing as Ultimate Providence and Rebirth. And also keep in mind that if you don't have Ariadne, Ultimate Providence, whatever it negates, you have to discard the same type. So if you want to negate a monster effect, you have to discard a monster. I mean, if you have no Ariadne, but you have Artemis, you can still just draw after you discard. So you get a, basically, you get a free play. So you don't plus, but you break even. If you want to negate a trap, which is the easiest thing to do because this deck plays more traps than anything, you want to negate an evenly match, you got to discard a trap. You know, if you want to negate a Twin Twisters or a Dark Hole or anything like that, a Thunder Dragon Fusion, you got to discard a spell. But the cool thing is this deck has an equilibrium in its ratios. It has 11 monsters and 11 spells, and the rest are all traps, which is really cool. So even if you don't have Ariadne, there's a high chance that you have any kind of card you need to discard for this. Divine Punishment does the exact same thing. When a monster, spell, or a trap effect is activated, while you have Sanctuary on the sky, negate it and destroy it. This is a searchable Sanctuary in the sky. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that. So yeah, Divine Punishment, I would play it at 3, but I don't always like situational cards. That's why I like it at 2. I like being able to draw it when I need it or search it when I need it, but also when I have the setup required. I mean, it's an easy setup. You just need to have this on field, which this is searchable, but playing this at 3 would result in hands when you draw too many of it and you don't have Sanctuary, or drawing it when you don't have Sanctuary altogether, or drawing it at the wrong time also, because they can still pop your Sanctuary. So yeah, it's a really good card. It just gives you more outs to evenly matched and to red reboot. So you have 8 searchable outs. And think of it, reboot's a 3 of. So don't you think you have a higher chance to draw 1 of 8 than your opponent does to draw 1 of 3? And even for the evenly, you can only play 3. If you have 8 main deck searchable outs to evenly and red reboot, and those cards you can only play 3 of, who has a higher chance of winning, you know, against those kind of cards? And that interaction, I would give the W to counter fairies every time. Then 1-ups, we have 1 recall and 1 solemn warning. I just wanted more monster negates. I know that your opponent draws off of it, but it's like strike sometimes isn't enough. And you know, these, you really prefer to use these on spells and traps for the most part, and save cards like solemn strike and recall for the monsters. And it is searchable. And then solemn warning, because you can play it for free and it negates normal summons. You know what I'm saying? So why not? It's the only card you have in your main deck that can stop normal summons. And it is searchable. That's it for your counter traps. Now we play 3 goals in match. I didn't want to play Rivalry, even though you can, because all your monsters are light fairies. The reason being is because Rivalry is a little bit too situational in certain matchups. Like, for example, Rivalry is not always that great against Sky Strikers, because if they have Hornet Drones, that token, I think it's a machine, and I could be wrong, but I think it's a machine. Maybe it's a warrior. But all their link monsters are machines, so if they've already established a link monster, they can just keep trading them out for the fire, the wind, and the water, and they're all machines. So I'm not saying Rivalry is bad against that deck, because it still can be good, especially if they have Ray, and I think the token's a warrior, so if you flip it on them at that point, they can't go into the extra deck, but it's still not always going to be ideal. And the same thing in the Thunder Dragon matchup, all their monsters are Thunders, so it's not like Rivalry is going to hurt them. And for Dracos, all their monsters are Worm types. For Altergeist, all their monsters are Spellcasters. You know, Gokis and Dark Warriors are the only decks that can possibly hurt. So ultimately, I felt like there's just too many decks that it doesn't hurt enough, whereas Gozen hurts like all those decks. Thunder Dragons cannot establish Colossus and Titan. They have to pick one. And also keep in mind, if they summon like a the level 1 guy or a Batteryman Solar, you can flip this to stop them from ever going into Titan in the first place. I'm sorry, into Colossus. And with Altergeist, they can never resolve Multi-Faker. For, you know, the Sky Striker matchup, they can't go into anything. For the Goki matchup, yeah, that's going to hurt a lot. And it just hurts every deck, you know? So it's really good. It hurts like every deck that's good. And then we have triple impermanence. You don't main deck hand traps, but this is like one of the only hand traps that you can play in a demise deck and get away with. Because you can still set it. It's still a reactive card, but on turn 0 when you're going second, it's something that you can use on your opponent. I'm not saying that it's going to win you the duel, but it helps. And then my other tech is Light of the Judgment. If Sanctuary is on the sky, you discard 1 light monster, and then you activate one of these effects. So you can look at your opponent's hand and discard one card from their hand. Or you can send one card your opponent controls to the grave. This is non-targeting, non-destruction removal. This outs any of the Thunder Dragons. This outs a monster that says, I'm Chaos Max. I can't be targeted or destroyed. I Light of Judgment, you're Chaos Max. Go to bed. You know, this card is just amazing. And then being able to look at your opponent's hand on their standby phase or their draw phase is really powerful, because now you know what they have and you take away their best play. And then you still have all your negates, your whole counter trap set up. So, yeah, I feel like if you're playing Counter Fairies and you're not playing this, you should try it out. It's a really good card. Impermanence is probably, like, not... If you can't access it, you can still play without it, but I definitely recommend play Goldens, because Goldens and Impermanence are the main way that this deck can play going second, because that's something that decks like this struggle with, is going second, playing into established boards. But you'd be surprised, this deck can actually pick boards apart little by little just through negations. Now for the extra deck, which you rarely ever go into, we have Double Hole Shinigen, Griffin, Borreload, Unicorn, Decode, Trishbania, Akashic. Here's the cards that you're actually going to pretty frequently. This and these. And this guy. And then these, the Baby Nightmares. These are really flex cards for when you have Ties of the Brethren play. And you, for example, you know, if you're under Barrier Statue, that's why I still play the Griffin, because it gives me an option to go into something under the Barrier Statue. But these are really flex cards. These are like win more cards when you're able to make them, but this deck doesn't spam the way you want. The only reason why this deck can consistently link summon is because of Parshath and because he can revive himself from the graveyard. You can actually go Parshath in your opponent's turn, respond to everything they have. If you have an OTK you can do, then you can link off with Parshath and another one of your normal summon guys, go into Hoshinigen, resolve a counter trap of whatever you want. You know, you can, whatever one you want if you're able to. You can resummon your Parshath through his effect, and you can normal summon for turn, and you can just attack for game, hopefully. So yeah, these are the ones you actually go into. This is easy to make. It really helps. It gives you removal that doesn't destroy. And then the Baby Nightmares are always good. Unicorn's really good too. And Underclock helps for the OTKs. This deck really needs to kill your opponent fast, because you don't want to go into a grind game because you're playing a trap deck, so it can take you longer to grind. And then we have Rank Force. MVP is Baby Pom Pom Girl, obviously. You know, draw one card. That's beautiful. It's broken. Abyss Dweller for Gokis. You know, Dark World Nightmare decks. I'm sorry, Dark World. What do they call it? Danger decks. Those kind of decks. It helps in a lot of other matchups too. It can help against what's the deck I'm thinking? It can help against Sky Strikers, because Ray does activate Engrave, so you can Dweller them. There's a lot of interactions. There's other decks too that it stops. It's really good. Exton, you know, you gotta play this card, bro. Even under the Barrier Statue, you can summon him. And then Bapuska, Poo Poo Boy, because sometimes it helps to get into him on your turn too. If you can't kill your opponent, you just poke, overlay for Baguska, keep your counter traps, and then you have like Cancer from Baguska, you have Cancer from your counter traps. You know, you just have a really, really strong lockdown. So yeah, that concludes the deck profile, you guys. I really put my foot into this. I hope that you guys enjoyed my Counter Fairy build. And if you guys did enjoy it that much, I will definitely do updates on this deck, because I think it's cool. I'll do some duels with it, of course, because I know you guys are going to ask for that. I'll do some duels with it. And if you guys like it and I get the feedback that, you know, that would encourage me to keep doing it, I'll keep updating this deck. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I've got more spice for you guys tonight. God bless you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And you folks have a beautiful night, okay? Don't do drugs.